I'm Hannah.
I'm Megan.
And this is the Sisterhood of the Traveling Book Club, where we read books and make fun of them.
Today we're reading chapters 4 through 9 of the book School of Good and Evil. So I'm going to be starting with chapter 4. So, Sophie is brought back to the castle and bumps into a girl with black hair with streaks of red. And she smells like, and they say she smells like an ever. And the other girls in the room, an albino girl, makes fun of her and says she's not a villain because of the way that she looks. And then a plump brunette is the only one who's friendly toward her in her new room. Sophie sees some fairies and is sure they're there for her. So she tries to signal to the fairies, but the fairies speak to the wolves that are standing nearby, and the wolves kick the little hole she was peering into, so she can't spy on them anymore. So she finds out that they don't understand where she came from. So this was an interesting part because they're all a little bit confused about why she's not from a part of the woods, because they're all from different parts of the woods. And she finds out later that that's because they're all from different villain families, basically, from the fairy tales. Whereas she is from outside and what they would call a reader. So she's actually not from the fairy tales, which is very unusual. And so they call themselves Nevers, because they're at the school for Nevermore. And the people who go to the other school are called Evers, like happily ever after. So that's why they were saying she smells like an ever, because she smells like the people who go to the good school. So they keep asking about like her hometown and are just generally confused about it. And then one of the girls is holding Sophie over the window and telling her to explain why she's not the villain, because Sophie has been going on and on that she's not a villain and that she belongs in the other school. And she's like, okay, tell me the good things you did then. And so she starts listing like all the good that she's done, and she's like, I even befriended Agatha. And Sophie says Agatha is the one who truly belongs there. And then she says she doesn't, because she's beautiful and the others are very ugly. And then Hester, the girl who's holding her over the window, says, that's why she's the villain. And then at that point, they're brought to the other school for the welcoming. Then we switch to Agatha's point of view. So Agatha gets her own room at this point because her two roommates that had been posted fled for various reasons because they didn't want to room with her. So she finds a tower where the one who brought them there was guarded. So she finds the tower basically where the head professor is being guarded, and she makes a plan that she wants to confront him after finding Sophie so that they can leave and go home. And then Agatha, at that point, finds a way to crawl through the vents into the ceiling, and she winds up in the Hall of Good that has tokens from all the good characters behind glass. So basically like a trophy room with all the different princesses and princes and whatnot. And kind of just like tokens from them, like a cape and things like that. And at one point, she finds a room with taxidermied animal sidekicks. And she finds out that they were not always animals, that they used to be students who were not good enough to be princesses or princes. And she's obviously very appalled by this and scared. And then, you guys have something to say about that? About the taxidermy?
It's just real creepy. I'm wondering if they just like murdered them in order to taxidermy them, or
yeah, I'm wondering if it's that, or like, I mean, I guess this whole podcast is going to be spoilers, but like, or if it's like the animals died protecting the princess. I don't know, because that's a lot darker, but it could be either way. But
I mean, keeping the carcass of a student at all is just a little
yeah,
weird.
it's all,
yeah.
And even Agatha,
I mean,
is surprised.
And I think, too, Agatha's really the only logical person here. She's just like, yeah, we don't want to stay in this crazy place. We need to go home. Like Sophie's like, I just need to get over to the good school. And Agatha's like, no, we just need to leave this place entirely.
Yeah. And I mean, she has a point. Like, what if you ended up being a taxidermied animal? Like, I would rather live a boring life than be taxidermied. I don't know. It's all very creepy. And she also notices in the hall there's a mural of pictures of children reading stories like fairy tales, and at that point she realized it's her hometown, Galveston. Is that how you would say it? Galveston? Possibly?
Sure.
Anyway.
That sounds great.
He sees
That's what we'll call it now.
Galveston. Yeah, they'll probably hate us if they actually read it anyway. So at that point, she's kind of just still wandering around the hall. And then two teachers walk in, and they're talking about the schoolmaster's delusions, bringing in a reader, is what they call them. And she, at this point, hasn't figured out exactly what a reader is, which we find out later. A reader is someone who is not from the woods, from like either a good family or an evil family. They're the people from Galveston who read the stories of the fairy tales. So she and Sophie are both readers. But anyways, these two teachers are talking about a prophecy of a reader, and the delusions of the headmaster for bringing in these readers. And then they also discuss that evil has not been good in over 200 years, and there needs to be some kind of balance for that. And then at that point, the fairies are looking around for Agatha, and so she makes a run for it. Chapter 5. Any comments on Chapter 4? Are we good to go on?
Yep.
Cool. Chapter 5. So, all the students enter the Theater of Tales, and which is split into the good side and the evil side. So Agatha finds Sophie and says she found the schoolmaster, and Sophie demands for Agatha's clothes without even like listening to her. I'm like, wow, you're a good friend. And then they're still arguing when all of a sudden the princes arrive. Well, they're not all princes, I guess. I don't know what you would call them. The male students at the school. Anyway, ever. And they put on this whole show of like sword fighting and then giving one of the girls from the Ever school roses and make a huge show of it. And everybody's kind of in awe of them. And then at the very end, a boy walks in who disarms all the rest, and he's basically has everybody fawning over him. Even the people from the Never side of the school are in awe because he's clearly very talented and attractive. And Sophie goes to snatch the rose from him because all the boys are giving roses to the girls, and she wants to be the one to catch it. But the wolves stop her at that point. And then the rose falls into Agatha's hand, and she's obviously disgusted by it. And we find out the boy is Tedro. Tedro? What do you guys think?
Like Tedro.
Yeah. It's a weird name. I was waiting for one of you guys to pronounce it so I could go off of that.
Well,
but Hannah had to like ask us what we thought.
Whatever his face is. We find out this pretty boy is King Arthur's son. And everybody's kind of still fawning over him when a two-headed dog walks in with one pretty head and one kind of rabid head. And they start welcoming the students. And the dogs say people are either born good or evil. Unless bloodlines are mixed, if they mix, then the school will basically change them into either purely good or purely evil. They say there's no in between, and that's kind of what they aim for anyway. And then both people on both sides begin to protest because they start pointing out Sophie and Agatha, and they're like, well, that doesn't make sense, then what are these two people doing here? And they say they have to keep the dogs at that point say they have to keep the balance of good and evil or their world will perish. So they have to have some kind of equality between the two. And they find out how the school ranking works. So these dogs are basically just explaining the whole process, right? How ranking works and who will become who. So basically you get a rank in all of your classes from like 1 to 20 or however big your class is. And the top ones become captains and the bottom ones risk expulsion or other awful things can happen to them. And then they find out they'll have lunches together, which Agatha thinks is great. And Sophie is only excited for because that means she'll get to see Tedro again. And she's clearly not thinking of her friend at all. And then they're told first years are barred from the woods because otherwise they'll die. And I'm like, is this... It's all screaming very Harry Potter to me, except for a two-headed dog and not a three-headed dog. I and I guess the dog box, which is different. And then the Bard from the Woods thing, I was like, oh. Anyways, and then Agatha is thinking she only wants Sophie back, but Sophie wants Prince Tedro, and that's kind of how it ends. Like, both of their clear choices, and it kind of shows again why Agatha probably belongs in the Ever School, whereas Sophie does not, with their priorities. And yeah, another thing I had to say is it's kind of, I don't know, like, I've never seen this show that you guys have talked about before. The Disney show with the children of villains. Is this anything like that?
Descendants. Yeah, actually, like, I'm using characters from that as my casting in my head reading this because it does remind me of Descendants a lot. Really.
Did this book come out before that? Do you know?
I think so. I don't know. I actually don't know.
Have you seen Descendants, Liz?
Yes. I think it's like, I think using those characters as casting is a good idea. I mean, I haven't done it, so I'm not sure since I've read the book already.
The only person I know is Dove Cameron. I don't know anybody else in the show because I've never seen it. But she's brought up.
Why are you not more unhealthily obsessed with kids' movies?
Yeah, I'm not.
I will start doing that now. I actually might watch it since I was like, this kind of sounds like that Disney show, and I was wondering what the similarities would be. So it might be a fun thing.
Yeah, I mean, of the like more recent Disney Channel stuff coming out, Descendants is, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I mean,
That's good.
cool. We're adults. We like Disney show. All right. 'Tis my turn?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it's the first day of classes in the schools, the various schools for good and evil. So, we start in the school for good, and all of the girls there are working really hard to get ready. They're like primping like crazy, trying to look their best the first day. Meanwhile, Agatha's like, I'm not about that life. She's trying to find her way back to the school for evil so that she can get to Sophie and go home. And so she's like going through the school trying to find where she was. She eats a little bit of the candy that the school is made of because, like, that's fair. Like, your school's made of candy. It'd be really hard not to eat it. On the other hand, like, candy that people had, like, walked on? Or, like...
That's the dilemma I had. Also, how old is this candy?
Yeah, I guess that's true, too. I mean, she does say that it's a good breakfast, so, I mean, it's...
Do we trust Agatha's judgment, though? Because I feel like she's eaten worse things. But
True. So yeah, I guess overall it's hard to say if this is a good idea or not, but she did eat the candy, so.
It's honestly reminiscent of the whole gingerbread house in the woods thing, which seems like a villain tactic. And I don't know why you would have that in your good.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like the school for good has definitely had some like
sketchy,
like
taxidermy
good or evil.
Taxidermy children makes me think it's not great, but
first let's transform them into animals, and then when they die.
All secretly villains, then? It's not really good and evil, it's just evil and pretend evil?
Yes.
Pretend good?
pretend good.
Evil and pretend good. Yeah. While she's searching, she briefly passes through Merlin's menagerie, and she wonders which just has a bunch of King Arthur's like life depicted in it. And she wonders if Tedro feels like suffocated by this, because she's just like, I would feel suffocated by this. But she finds the bridge, but there's a barrier blocking the way. She hides from two teachers who are passing by. One is good and one is evil. The one who's good seems to look at her, but like doesn't rat her out or anything. Anyway, finally she kicks the barrier and is like running away when she hears a voice say, "And stay out!" And so she turns around and she sees that it's her reflection that's talking to her. And they have this whole conversation where it's like good with good, evil with evil. And so she uses that to trick her reflection by saying something evil to her reflection so that she can get through.
I was a little bit confused about this part. What do you guys think the purpose of this was? I don't know. Is it explained more later, Liz?
I mean, I guess as like a defense for like keeping students from going over to the other one, I don't see its purpose. Like creating a barrier that's that easy to trick.
Yeah. Well, my
isn't great.
Is like maybe like I was thinking like, is it supposed to be like we are who we say we are, or like who we create we are? But in which case, Agatha has always thought of herself as not good, so it wouldn't make sense for her to be blocked in the first place.
Do you want?
No, if it talks about it later, then let's not do spoilers. I'll wait.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I all I will say is just that her moments with her reflection are indicative of her character arc. So, like, I think that's the use of it in the story.
Gotcha.
But I mean, just as like a defense for the schools, it's like, bad job, guys. I don't know, like, make it super easy to sneak over there, I guess.
Well, they probably don't assume most evers are going to sneak over. I don't know about the other guys.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, hard to say. So, she's like walking around the school for evil, and she's like, "Man, I feel like I belong here, guys. Like, this is a little bit disturbing. How much I feel like I could be here." She sees some of like the wolf guard people, and they like start chasing her, and so she's running away, and she ends up on the roof, and she thinks the wolf is going to follow her out onto the roof, but the wolf is just like, "There are worse things than wolves," and walks away, and she's like, "What is he talking about?" And then she's chased by gargoyles, which she escapes in very miraculous fashion. She caught a lot of lucky breaks, I feel like, in that whole exchange. Not only because she escapes the gargoyles, but she escapes basically into Sophie's room. Not in her room, but like
on her floor.
On her floor, and like is able to find Sophie like right after. So she like gets into Sophie's room, and Sophie's on the floor, like, or is like sitting in the middle of the room, like doing her makeup, and is singing the song about princesses, and all of her roommates are just like sitting on the other side of the room, disgusted, being like, "What is happening right now?" Like, and Sophie's just like, "Agatha, you're late." Like, of course Agatha's gonna arrive so that we can switch and I can go to my school. She's just, I feel like Sophie operates under a lot of delusions. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, she seems very delusional. I mean, she is capturing the princess role well, of just waiting for her prince or someone else to come fix her problems. Well, some of the princesses, if we're being honest. So,
yeah.
I mean, maybe she's playing the role well, but
yeah, maybe she's just going off what she's read. She's like, you know what? Princesses aren't proactive usually, so I'll just wait here, put my makeup on so I look good. And so Sophie's like, okay, like we'll switch dresses, and Agatha's like, what's happening? We're trying to leave. And Sophie's like, no, we're just gonna switch because this is where you belong, and I'm gonna go over to the school for good. And the roommates are like, yeah, Agatha, stay with us. Like, we could tell when we first saw you that you belonged here. And she was just like, ah. So Sophie, like, is just like, well, I'm gonna be late for class, so I have to go. So she's like running to get away. Agatha chases her, but before she can get to the school for good, this wave comes up and separates Agatha from Sophie, and they end up back at Agatha at the school for good and Sophie at the school for evil. And that's how that chapter ends.
Yeah. Isn't there a point I really like when she's still like Sophie like still hurts her because Agatha is saying, you think I belong here? And it kind of goes back to the like, if you look like it, then you do. Kind of.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, kind of hurt about that again. Agatha is, because she's like, just because I look different doesn't mean I'm evil, you know? And she's kind of having a dilemma again.
Yeah, I think this idea of like appearance being like indicative of your moral character. Yeah, but Sophie really buys into.
You were good because you were blonde. So.
And Megan and I are clearly going to the school for evil because we're brunette. Except for I are blonde, so I might be like Sophie, trying to like pretend like I'm good.
I mean, neither school seems great.
Yeah, they're both schools for evil, if we're being honest.
But I mean, yeah, I am blonde. My hair, I mean, not today. My hair can be super shiny though, so.
Belong to the
You've been neglecting your beautification class.
Whatever you do, don't smile at him. All right, so now we're getting to chapter 7. So in chapter 7, Sophie's in uglification class, and she is just like, I'm not supposed to be here, and her teacher is just like, why do we want to be ugly? And people are giving their answers like, because it scares people, and he's like, no. And finally it's like, so that you can really be who you are, because once you're ugly and your appearance doesn't matter to you anymore, then you'll know who you really are at your core. Which I think is like this sentiment that's almost right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Like, I feel like the evil school is almost less evil than the Evers because, like, the Evers pretend to be good and, like, they're very vain and, like, self-centered, whereas the evil people never pretend to be anything more or less than they are, which to me is a lot less manipulative and scary. Because, like, I think that's why Sophie as a character is so scary, too. Because, like, she's under these delusions that she's so good, but at the core, like, she has all of these very evil desires and beliefs about the world. And it's scary because with that kind of motivation, thinking that you're doing good, like, you can do a lot of damage.
And I mean, I think that's part of the thing, like, good villains, like well-written villains in movies and books and everything, never think that what they're doing is evil. They think that they're doing good stuff. But they've either like taken it too far or just sort of misunderstood what's happening. And so I think that's the interesting thing. I think that I agree that that's the thing that is scary about Sophie, is that it's like, oh yeah, she'd make a great villain because she thinks she's a good person. And she's sitting there in this class and she's like, I'm pretty sure my beautification teacher isn't going to approve of me doing any of this stuff. And anyway, finally, Hort. Have we talked about Hort yet?
I didn't really bring up names in my chapters.
Hort is like noticed Sophie when they were on their way into the school for evil, and you can tell is kind of a little preoccupied with her. Hort is like, oh, I'll help her, teacher. Like, oh, I can be a teacher's pet and help Sophie be better. And so he like smashes her face into this bowl, which is upsetting to her. So then we go to beautification class with Agatha, and the teacher is talking about smiling and how important smiling is. And so she has everyone practice their smiles. And Agatha's is quite disturbing, apparently. And so they're like, just try to think of something just genuinely happy. And Agatha's like having a hard time. And eventually the teacher's just like, if you want a man to do anything, to help you or to acknowledge you or anything like that, for heaven's sake, don't smile at him. Like, which is just really the rough times, right? I mean, like, Agatha's really not having a great day. Like,
at this point, isn't she actually trying to put in an effort, because hasn't she come to the conclusion that she needs to try to stay at the school for good? Because if she does, then Sophie will eventually be prepared to go back with her.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's trying not to fail. Yeah. But she does get the 20.
Yeah, she still fails. Which is, even sadder that she was genuinely trying at that point, because she'd made that decision to try to stay at the Ever school.
Yeah. Yeah. She's just getting a lot of feedback about her appearance, and it's not a happy time. She goes to her next class, which is like manners and decorum or something like that, which one of the dogs is teaching, and they're practicing like posture, and so they're doing this thing where they're walking holding eggs, and she breaks all of her eggs, and the teacher, like, all of those could have been nightingales, and I'm like, why did you use fertilized eggs, you idiots?
Because, as we've established, they're kind of evil. Like, they have no respect for animal or human life.
Right? It's like, this
Stakes
is
are high, guys. Stakes are high.
animal cruelty, guys.
An innocent baby will die. Like,
you're just like,
I'm not going to tell you that until after you killed them.
clearly.
Then you can just feel bad about it. So she gets the 20 on that, the 20 ranking again, and she's like, oh no, one more 20 and I fail. So then we go back to Sophie, and she's in, is it henchman? The henchman class. And they, in that class that day, they're doing, they're learning a little bit about how to like manipulate or get your henchmen to do your bidding. And so the teacher brings out a golden goose. And all the students are like, oh, golden geese don't like evil people. They only like good people. Like, what are we doing with, like, this isn't a good henchman. And they're like, the teacher says, well, it's a good test, because if you can get the golden goose to do what you want, then you're pretty good at this, you know. You'll be better at, you know, getting other people to do what you want. So the whole class is going through and trying to get the golden goose to lay golden eggs for them. And finally, it's Sophie's turn. And she and the goose have this telepathic conversation where the goose is just like, hey, I can hear your thoughts. And she's like, whoa, is it like this for everyone? And the goose is like, no, your thoughts are loud. And so that she's like, can you help me get out of here, because I'm not evil, I'm good. And the goose is like, I mean, I'll help you with whatever you want, just make a wish. And so she's making this wish to be a princess and has it really strongly in her mind, but it ends with this moment of like, oh, I hope Agatha didn't tell Tedro that we're friends, because I wouldn't want Tedro to think I'm friends with Agatha. And she opens her eyes, and the goose has like drained of color and is just like a regular goose now. It's not a golden goose, and the class is all like looking at her like, what? And she's like, what happened? And they're like, the goose would rather give up its power than help you. And she was like, what? And they're like, oh, you must be really evil if you're able to get a golden goose to do that. You're like a high witch.
I think that the goose was pretty evil.
Right?
I can help you, but I won't.
It's like, I would rather not be magical or even like really a conscious being than help you with your dreams.
So, good luck with that. It's like, the goose is just like, you're a crappy friend, so I'm gonna be mean.
I'm just gonna be a regular goose now.
It's like, I can't even do this magic thing anymore. Good, evil, I don't know, guys. Peace out. Then there's this short scene where the schoolmaster is like, oh, someone, like, the one who can get the goose to do this is the one who can tip the scales. And you're like, oh, how mysterious. So that's that part.
I mean, she did fail that challenge, technically. I didn't understand how she got a 1.
Yeah. So, yeah, I did forget. She got the #1 ranking, so she's not failing out of school now. So
The goal was to get a golden egg. You got nothing, so here's your first place rank.
And instead, she's like,
she's like, this is not... This is not how the grade, like, this is not how the assignment was explained to me. If I had known that that would have been, like, the A+, that's what I would have gone for.
Trust, like, an evil teacher, though, to tell you the correct way to get a good grade.
True.
Because if I can think of anything more evil, it's teachers who don't tell you the correct way to get a good grade.
That does suck. That is the worst. So finally it ends with class and the teacher's talking, and she's like, you know what? I can't really give you any tests in this class because really we're just going to learn about like I can't give you any tests, but like what a nemesis is and like what the symptoms are of like having one. In this class, you will learn to find the ever who stands in the way of your goal. The one who will grow stronger as you grow weaker. They're out there, my nevers, somewhere in the woods, your nemesis. When the time is right, you will find and destroy them. That is your path to freedom. So, essentially, like, as a never, the highest thing that you want to achieve is, like, find a nemesis, defeat them, and then you achieve nevermore, which is this place of power and solitude. But it's been a really long time since anyone from the School of Evil has won. So, but the teacher's also saying like only the most evil students have nemesis. And in the middle of this description, Sophie does have some like kind of angry thoughts about Agatha. And so you kind of get this sense of like foreshadowing, kind of, with like her being like, oh, like the teacher being like, a nemesis is your arch enemy, your other half, your soul's inverse, your Achilles heel, and Sophie's sitting there like, oh, Agatha's sitting there in my school, in my clothes, talking to the people that are supposed to be my friends, and like, finally it's like, oh, we're gonna have lunchtime, and she's like, yay, lunch we have together, so I'll get to see Tedro there, but then they cancel it and they send lunches to everyone's rooms, so she's just sad. Well, wait, because
Cancel it
Because
sorry, what?
Bonfire.
Power.
Oh, yes, that's what it was, yeah. Because the good is on fire.
Yes.
So they can't have lunch. The end. Sorry.
No one needs lunch. It's fine.
You can starve. You jerks.
Chapter 8 then. So Tedros, is that what we're going with?
Yep.
Sure. Go for it.
So it's actually weird because this chapter started with a little bit about Tedros, and I guess it's not actually from anyone's perspective, but it still was weird to have him suddenly focused on.
Yeah.
I agree.
So he's chilling in the groom room, and he's being ogled by girls who are peeking through cracks in the door, which is, there shouldn't be cracks in that door, man. Somebody should fix that.
I know. I'm like, another thing about being good, are peeping Toms good? Like
that feels like not a good thing.
So he's leaves, and he's like prepared to greet his fan club, but they've all been shooed away. And he bumps into Agatha, and Agatha's just immune to his charm. She's like, this is the guy that took over Sophie's mind. She's obsessed with him. I hate him. So she just kind of walks off, and he feels this small crack in his confidence, and he wonders again why she's in his school, because she's obviously this villain. Then Agatha goes to animal communication class because suddenly it's not about Tedros anymore. That was it. So an animal communication class is just for the girls because apparently there's a lot of these classes that are just split up between just for girls and just for boys. And Agatha thinks animal communication is a dumb skill to have, but that's what passive princesses do. They just wait around for the guys to come save them, so they don't need animal communication. Yeah.
It's like, well, if I'm doing nothing, I might as well chat with my goat friend.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you make them do the laundry for you,
that would be nice. I'd be good with that. Mm-hmm. So it's being taught by his annoying, giggly princess, and she tells them how any animal can talk to them if you learn how to communicate with them, and some of them even remember when they were human, which is, you know, just a chilling moment, but only Agatha cares. So she thinks about how some of these students that she's in class with are going to end up being animals, and they will have the job of helping the main fairy tale princesses and princes as they try to get their happy endings, and then some of them will even die for them in the process, and it's supposed to be their honor to do that. Princess Uma gives them their challenge for that day, and it's they have to stick their hand into the lake where there's wish fish, and then the wish fish like read their soul to find what their greatest wish is, and whoever has the strongest, clearest wish wins. So every single girl puts her hand in, and some of them are like not clear, but for the ones who are, every single one of them is a boy, one of the princes, whatever they are.
And I love that they think this is like a good, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad desire to like a boy, but I feel like there's better things.
Desire to have.
Well, and to kind of go back a little bit too, like, they talk about how, like, none of the girls were concerned with, like, dying. And then, like, Agatha makes the point, she's like, it's because they all think they're going to be the princesses. Like, none of them think they're going to end up as the little sidekicks.
Yeah, well, and I almost wonder, like, the girls who it's, like, less clear for, if they're sitting there like, well, I've been told my whole life that I'm supposed to want a prince. I don't necessarily want that. But also, if I don't want a prince, I'm going to die as a goat. And so you're sitting there, you're like, I have to make this wish really strong, when really it's like, I don't want to die as a goat. But also that means that I have a crush on this guy. Like, of course your wish isn't going to be clear if it's like, I don't actually want it, I just don't want to die. Like,
so there's a possibility that a couple of them are sane.
Yeah, some of them maybe have that in their mind. They're like, The only way to live is to have a prince. Like,
I think they're giving them too much credit.
I mean, maybe it's a subconscious thing. Maybe they don't realize that's in their mind.
I feel like at this point they're all so brainwashed. I mean, but yeah, it could be that kind of brainwash too, like realizing that it might not be right, but they have to do it.
Yeah.
All right. So they all do that. They all see boys, and then Agatha still hasn't gone, but I guess the princess thinks everyone's finished. So she puts her hand in and she makes her wish, and they all turn into a bright pink suitcase. And then she's like really disappointed when someone says Agatha hasn't gone, and she has to put the suitcase back, and it turns back into the fish.
I just really wanted this suitcase, guys. Here, go on, Megan.
Agatha puts her hand in, and then there's this terrifying twist of events where the fish kind of just latch onto her and grab her and cover her, break her finger. Is what it was talked about. And finally, they transform into this young girl who then, I guess, was like, "You're the first person who wished to save me," and then she splinters and disappears.
Did she die?
Yeah. It sounds like it, but at least she died human. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, she didn't get taxidermied. I'm not sure how you'd taxidermy a fish, but like...
They'd probably find a way.
So, everyone's just shocked. If I were Agatha, I would be a little in need of therapy at that moment. So... And then all the animals around the school and in the woods are just like silent for a moment, and then they all start coming to Agatha. They all start freaking out, beeline for her, because they want her to save them too. And she can hear them all. Yeah. So she's understanding all of them, even though she has no training. So she runs. She's like, I'm gonna die. They're gonna trample me. And she goes up through the castle. Pollux, that's the good one, right?
The dogs, yes.
Yeah. So he's yelling at her, "Hey, don't go up there, stop!" Because, damage to the school with all these animals. But she does anyway, because she's scared. And she runs up to Merlin's Menagerie. Is that what the place is called? Mm-hmm. Okay. With all the hedges of King Arthur. So she runs up there, and then she gets stopped by this gargoyle. And it's the one that can spit fire, and everything's on fire, and he pins her. And then he has her out there, and he asks her to help him. And she realizes, oh crap, this is a person too. So she sits there. She's like, I wish I could help you. And he starts to soften, and he is turning back into this young boy. When suddenly a sword gets thrust through his heart, and it's Tedros. So she punches him. She's like, you are a terrible person. That was a boy. Punches him. All the teachers, wolves, and fairies arrive, and then a wave crashes over the burning roof. Chapter 9. After the tower burning incident, the classes were canceled for the next 2 days. So Sophie has been stuck in her room with just her roommates. And they're all really suspicious of her because they're like, how did you do that thing with the goose? And she tells them that she could hear its thoughts. And Dot says that she would have to be 100% pure for that to happen. And Sophie's like, well, yeah, I'm 100% pure good. While they're all thinking you're 100% pure evil. Hester then tells Sophie, stay out of my way. I'm going to be the class captain. And she storms off. On the third day after the fire, classes start again. And they have special talents. And the challenge for this class is to have the most potent talent because they do a showcase where they compete with good. And they really want evil to win. So they each take turns. Some people don't really have a talent. I guess Dot's talent is just turning things into chocolate with her like Midas touch action. And then Hester has a tattoo that comes to life, and then it's this little demon thing that crawls off her and then starts attacking Sophie. So desperate, Sophie tries whistling for the animals to come help her because she's a princess and they want to. But instead of a good, noble animal coming to her rescue, she ends up with these black wasps and bats and locusts all coming, and they swarm the demon and attack it, which seems to be hurting Hester because she's like convulsing in her seat and struggling to breathe. So Sophie finally kind of jumps in and yells, "Stop!" And then the swarm leaves, and the demon goes back to Hester, and everyone is just staring at Sophie in fear. She has this number one ranking over her head again, and the teacher's super excited about that. She's like, "You're gonna win. This is great for evil." And everyone's starting to look at her with respect because they all think she's this big villain and they're gonna win everything with her.
And they're right.
Yeah, I got a feeling. Meanwhile, Agatha has been brought over to Professor Clarissa Dovey in the good school. Is she like head of good?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. She gets told off because she didn't listen to Pollux, and he told her to not go up the stairs with the stampeding animals, and she didn't. So she thinks she's getting kicked out. She's going to die. But she's like, "No, you got a number one ranking in your class. You did awesome. Just, listen to your teachers in the future." And then through the window, she can see Tedros and his mates kicking around this dummy that they've made to look just like her. And Tedros shoots it through the heart with an arrow before walking off. I was like, that seems threatening.
Again, the school for good?
I know, like, pretending to shoot other students. Yeah.
The end of chapter 9.
Should we go over classes that we think they should have now? So
yes.
We wanted to do classes that we think they should have. The classes I chose was how to clean for the Evers, because Cinderella and Snow White, and there's a lot of people just picking up after people. But then I also realized they also make their animals sidekicks do the brunt of that work. So I don't know, like how to be like, what's the name of like the head guy in like Downton Abbey?
A butler?
Yes, I guess the butler. I was trying to remember his specific name. Anyways.
Oh, what is his name? Oh, that's gonna bother me. Go on.
I was just gonna say maybe they just should learn how to be like housekeepers professionally and order animals around. Or maybe learn how to clean because most of them will be those taxidermied animals. Let's be honest.
No. None of them could possibly be in the bottom third of their class.
Yeah.
Because a third doesn't exist. The bottom third.
Yeah, a third definitely isn't a part of the whole.
Yes. And then the other class I thought they should have is how to faint or damsel in distress. So just like how to pass out on command, I thought would be a good thing to learn how to do. Yeah. Those are the ones
For the princes, right?
What?
Yeah, the princes in their class.
For the princes as well, because they will also be saved by their animal sidekicks who have to do all the work. Or they'll just be dumb like Tedros and kill everything in sight. Maybe they should learn restraint. No, that seems too nice.
Restraint. Let's have a class called restraint. I mean, I think that would be a useful class.
It would be useful.
World.
Is it realistic though? No. Will anybody actually have that class? No. Maybe they should have a class though, like who you should not kill. I don't know. Like
the first day, the teacher's like, so we're in the school for good. So like, who you should not kill. I feel like this should be pretty simple. Children. Maybe,
still a small boy. Don't kill.
Just an idea.
But you didn't know.
Don't kill children.
We just told you to kill things, but we didn't say who. So you're off the hook for that one.
So I guess we're not mad.
Yeah. And those were the ones I thought. Who's next?
I feel like evil should have a class about like how not to seem suspicious. You don't have to outright be like, I'm a villain.
It's true.
I feel like it would help your cause to not be like that.
Right. Well, and I mean, I feel like my class was kind of in line with that. Because I thought like a good class for evil would be good intentions, where it's like the most evil things are things that look like they're good, but aren't, right? So that's kind of like what you're saying, like not looking suspicious, right?
Yeah.
It's like you gotta go in being like, oh, I am intending to do good, but really I'm evil. So I think that would be a good class for the evil.
I'm also wondering why there are not more beautiful people in the evil class, because isn't like the Snow White's stepmother, isn't she supposed to be beautiful? I mean, not as beautiful as Snow White, but like there's quite a few fairy tales, I think, where the villain is described as beautiful. I mean, not like
beautiful people are evil, Hannah.
Clearly.
That's a very pointed comment at you.
And not.
I mean, if you didn't figure that out by now, I would have been concerned. I already established that my hair is brown, but I bleached it blonde to confuse people.
Try to look good.
To get into the Ever School.
I mean, this is what Megan and I are saying. They need classes where it's like evil disguised as good is.
Yeah, Hannah can teach it. She's got it.
I'm very good at this, clearly. Any other classes?
I felt that the good, I mean, this is just like too reasonable, so here you go. A class for the good would be like philosophy, just like moral philosophy. Like, let's talk about what good is.
Like an ethics class?
Yeah, but I feel like if they had that, they wouldn't have taxidermied students, so...
Or ambiguous ideas of what good is, or the greatest good being finding a man.
Yeah. Because I mean, I feel like a philosophy class would be like, oh, now our students are going to think about things and be like, you know, there's something about this place.
Seems off.
I'm just saying, this reminds me of The Good Place now, and I'm wondering if they're all going to be like, wait a second, this is the bad place.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say Chidi and Gonye should teach the ethics class. They may not get anywhere, but they'll have a fun ride.
So what we're saying is a crossover between the School for Good and Evil and The Good Place.
Yes, and Descendants and Harry Potter. It would be amazing at the same time.
Dang, a lot of parallels here.
Yes.
And we're not talking about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Good job, guys.
That's like the first for us.
I mean, I'm sure it'll come up later because people doing crazy things for boys and stuff.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Well,
people doing morally questionable things for boys.
Yeah, honestly, we should have made that connection earlier. Being obsessed with a boy and basically not caring who you trample on to get there.
Yeah, wasn't like Princess Uma even like, now that you have your wish so clear, Beatrix, you have to focus on it.
Hunt him.
Yeah, she told her to be obsessive. Like, she right out said to be obsessive.
Yeah,
this is where Rebecca Bunch got her start.
The School for Good. She saw Josh Chan in the Wish Fish Pond.
Oh, man.
I mean, what kind of camps did they go to? It never really was.
That's true.
It wasn't explained, so it's probably clearly this.
They did. I mean, they didn't make it clear, but I'm with you guys. It was definitely a school, not a camp, a school.
Well, those were some good chapters, and we will discuss more next week.